Indeed, a number of our lecturers have also traveled to the great beyond and are no longer with us today. Permit me to mention the names of our departed colleagues and lecturers. Departed colleagues are Major Bethel, Mr. Zach Dudima, Mr. George Temple, Mr. Akieti, Mr. Aholu, Mr. Atifa, Mr. Alex Okreku, Reverend Inchide, Mr. Paul Insia, Mr. Julius Hupoti, Mr. Saki, Mr. Nicholas Ateva, and Mr. Abifajan. Departed lecturers from the Ghana School of Law are Colonel Lodo, who taught us conveyancing, Justice Afrin Company Law, Mr. Alexander Ezi taught us interpretation, Mr. Jekeda Law of Evidence, Mr. Fiatube Insurance Law, Mr. BCRAC Crown Legislative Drafting, Justice Edu Criminal Law Procedure. Departed lecturers from the University of Ghana School of Law are Mr. K.Y. Yebua, who taught us conflict of laws, Professor Yao Bene, International Law, and Dr. Josiah Aye, Environmental Property Law. Let's rise as we observe eminent silence. May the souls of our dearly departed colleagues and lecturers continue to abide in the bosom of.
Very happy. As you know, he's a member of your year group. This is because we have been planning to reach out to all the year groups and to remind you of the contribution of the University of Ghana School of Law to your career development. That's all I'm saying. And for those who didn't attend here, to remind you that you used our library and our reading lists. I think the message is clear. So once welcoming you warmly here and allowing you to use all of our facilities for free, please remember that there's no free lunch. And we'll soon be posting a very nice message on your WhatsApp platform. My Lord, Justice Amegaja is looking at me because I have been to him already. Exactly for the purpose for which I'll be coming to you. So welcome and have a joyful and productive 20-year celebration.
The School of Law provided this facility and all the amenities we are using for free to this year. Thank you so much. We will now invite Mrs. Ama Kokokwan-Ponsa, a member of the 2002 year group, a legal practitioner, to lead us in launching the anniversary celebrations and also see to some donations that the group has. Let's please welcome them.
Ghana School of Law class of 2002 here present, and those joining us virtually, our media partners, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. The Ghana School of Law class of 2002 is extremely honored and excited to have you here today. As Catherine mentioned, exactly 20 years ago today, 99 of us, as fresh lawyers, received our certificates and had our names entered on the roll of lawyers in Ghana. Thus far, the good Lord has brought us. Although we have lost 13 of our colleagues along life's journey, those of us still standing are grateful to God for the gift of life and have every cause to celebrate. That is why we have put up a number of activities to mark this anniversary. Catherine has already outlined the program, so I will not go through. We are indeed grateful to God for His goodness and His faithfulness. On this note, I declare the Ghana School of Law Class of 2002 20th Anniversary Celebration duly launched. Thank you very much. We respectfully pray that if reps of the two institutions, University of Ghana School of Law and the Ghana School of Law, will come forward and then we will give our donations.
To spend the very first minute on my protocols, and I do believe that I'll stay within the mandatory 10 minutes. Professor Michael Quay, Speaker of the 7th Parliament, is supported to his right by my colleague, the Majority Leader, one in whom sometimes I'm pleased in the morning and very displeased in the evening, depending upon what business is introduced into Parliament. My Lord Nene Amegachi, who took us through advocacy, I'm sure many of our year group will recall that. And my Lord Professor Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, refreshing to see you all. I see the Honorable Amwakwata maybe exemplifying success of our year group in the road sector. Suffice it to add that you have done 2 years of road improvement, 2001 and 2002, but I still acknowledge your presence here. Dr. Bafwa and our colleagues and my colleague panelists, how refreshing it is to see many of you today, the 2002 year group. A startling sight of a momentous reunion. And I share that borrow from the words of Professor Raymond Atuga, that probably our year group is blazing the trail and many other year groups will follow suit. It makes it easier for the dean of the law school to be able to tax and then ask them to pay dues that we didn't pay whilst using library and other issues. Today's discussion is on Parliament as a countervailing force for effective governance in Ghana, challenges, prospects, and recommendations. And as many of you will recall, Ghana does have a parliament per Article 93 of the 1992 Constitution, which exercises the legislative mandate of the Republic of Ghana. Apart from making laws, which is our traditional primary function, we also exercise oversight over the executive. We've had the 1992 Constitution serve us in the last 30 years. It has served us all, but can't we improve it to improve our governance architecture? That is the question we should be finding answers to today. It does serve us, but it also can be improved. And we should not just be limiting ourselves to constitutional changes. We should also be mindful of legislative and administrative changes that may be required to improve our governance architecture. Now, the Parliament of Ghana from 1993 to yesterday, my assessment is that it has stabilized Ghana, and we've had the 1992 Constitution as the most enduring constitution of our republic. But a passive parliament, always ready and wanting to yield to an executive influence government because of the borrowed concept of a hybrid system. Sometimes in the morning, the Honorable Chairman wants to walk us through the British Prime Minister system. Then when it pleases him, he comes back and says we are the executive system of the Americans. So the hybrid itself have not served our purposes well. You also must be mindful of what the military interventions in the past have done to the disbandment of parliament during these 3 interventions, and that has also contributed to tilting the power balance between parliament and the executive. And I think that our constitution is excessively a presidential system of government where more powers are vested in the president. We need to review that in order to reduce the powers of the president, to the extent that even the managing director of STC, State Transport Corporation, must be appointed by the president. Is that a presidential function? If you want to get somebody into a managerial position such as Ghana Railway Company Limited, you will say that the president must appoint the managing director of Ghana Railway Company Limited. Mr. Moderator, to put it shortly, Ghana's parliament has many failings, but our primary failing is intensively and excessively partisan parliament, always wanting to suit the ruling executive. If it is the NDC, want to please the president of the republic, who is an NDC president. If it is a new patriotic party MPP, we want to please the president, who is the executive president. So part of our being as a country is an intensively and excessively partisan legislature. And parliament itself does not avail itself for diligent scrutiny. What is its impact on our public financial management system? What is benefit? But both governments are guilty. NDC will introduce it in the wee hours of rising, then he brings it in the darkness of night and say that we should get it passed. I'm sure I can remind him of a certain Palogo when he wanted to do Sino-Hydro. They just carried a bulky document to Parliament. Minister for Roads, you are happy because it had an interchange affecting Tamale. Then he said, pass it for me. Now, pass it for me at that material time. What due diligence is the Parliament of Ghana doing and will be doing in order to get the public purpose and the public good well and truly served? Both administrations, NDC and MPP, you saw the SCS loan agreement pass through Parliament. You saw the CNTI loan agreement pass through Parliament. A mark of failure of our Parliament to undertake scrutiny and due diligence. And to allow for greater consultation in order to build consensus. But that is not happening, even though that is what the Ghanaian people voted in 2020, so that the 2021 composition of Parliament provides for a compelling necessity for government to consult more and to reach out more to the political opposition. When they brought e-levy and we said, hasten cautiously, let's consult, let's improve it. Probably today I have opportunity to explain it. I have been Minister for Communications, so as they were laboring, he will recall one of the meetings. I asked the Minister for Finance, why? You think that we are not technically competent? When you come and say that Vodafone will take 0.25% less 1%. So I reminded the Minister for Finance, Vodafone is 0. So 0, can you get 0.25% less of it? In order to let him know that we're technically competent. But at least even when we said that, start with 1% in, 1% out. Those of you who understand Momo, cash in, cash out. You allow for the operators, MNO, to keep 1% and cede 1% to government. Nobody even allowed me to elucidate what I meant by the 1%. Probably not Kenufurata or Nana Danquest 1%. My 1% was to say that inbuilt in it was already a levy of a sort. Share it with the telecom operators. They keep 1% and you also keep 1% because you are expanding the limit from limited threshold of 5,000 to an endless 100 Ghana cedis to 1 billion. So probably you have repositioned the telecos to make more profit. So arguably, Mr. Moderator, let me leave it here. The hung parliament requires us as a country to consult more.
Before I proceed to delve deeper into the topic and the discussion, permit me to borrow from the words of James Madison in his Federalist Papers. Quote, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government will be necessary. If framing a government that is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must enable the government to control the government, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself, unquote. The parliament that we have has many functions, and what they do, we have experienced them since 1993 up to date. And if you ask me about the performance of parliament so far from 93 to date, I will say that the parliament of 1997 and 2001 has so far been the best parliament that we've had in Ghana. That's my view. I'm going to be controversial, but that's my opinion. In that parliament, the majority had over 133 seats, then the minority was 66 to 7 seats. But we saw the kind of debate that went on. What has accounted for the change that I think has happened over the years? These are the areas I'm going to touch on. Some of them very controversial, but I need to state them as they are. In his handbook, Professor Kofi Kumado, that's on constitutional law of Ghana and history, he stated as follows, quote, "While it will be admitted that Parliament has worked with the committee system admirably, it is not an exaggeration to state that more can be done, especially in terms of overseeing the work of the government. But it is undoubtedly the output of the committees which make it possible for Parliament to meet many of its targets. However, the lack of visibility in the work of the committees robs Parliament of much of the credit issue enjoyed from the public." I share the sentiments of the learned professor. Has Parliament decided not to perform certain functions? I'll say yes. Minority Leader, if you take our constitution, there is a provision, that's Article 22, Clause 3. Professor Kumado has indicated, and I'm quoting him, "Apart from oversight, the executive, for which the government system is critical, there are other tasks which the Constitution has entrusted to Parliament, many of which are still awaiting action."
Now, there were two issues involved. He's a minister, he's a member of Parliament. Now, in not working as a minister, he was also not attending parliamentary duty. And it is not the president who has to discipline her in terms of her attendance on the floor of Parliament. That is the responsibility of Parliament. And yet, if you heard some MP speaking, it will look as if it was the obligation of the president to discipline her. Now, you know, at the beginning of last year, when ministerial nominees were announced, there were a number of people that the minority in particular raised objections to. And they decided to vote on those people. Now, when the votes were out, Ghanaians were very surprised and shocked. The people that most people had thought were incapable of holding ministerial positions, they had more votes than people that they considered to be better.
The Deputy Attorney General, when he said that Article 108, thankfully we have Professor Michael Quay here, and to his credit, he gave the most liberal interpretation of Article 108 that has allowed for what you now call an initiation of private members' bill in Parliament. And you've seen the Road Traffic Amendment Bill, members are taking advantage of it. But hitherto, other speakers had shied away and given their interpretation to mean that if you amended the law and it had consequence on the consolidated fund, you could not proceed with it. So we've dealt with it. Now, the Honorable Tuya also raises the issue of censorship, and then I'll come to your question. Currently, the minority will file a motion of censorship against the health minister on matters relating to lack of transparency and accountability of COVID. We are not getting the cooperation of the other side, but in principle, what is not right is not right. He didn't do right. Probably, I'll answer your question. You've heard President Nana Addo Dankwa say that he will not reshuffle cabinet. The only institution that can compel him to reshuffle is Parliament. But Parliament is living up to that calling because him to check. I mean, if he says that I will reshuffle cabinet, and you have the which is the gloomiest of economy in the world, essentially a motion of the finance minister becomes that I don't have the threshold. I need 183 members of parliament to sign motion of sense. You have to crossbreed. So the problem with Ghana is that 1992 constitution has served us. It needs a comprehensive review, not a limited review. Beyond Professor Mills, Professor Fiajo committee report, you have seen the current government narrow itself to one or two amendments. Maybe they are interested in the decentralization provisions. No, we need a thorough development-oriented constitution. But we need to learn from Kenya. Kenya in 2010 amended to reflect what you call separate ministers from members of parliament. Maybe I see Dr. Bafo, you can go there and see whether it's serving them well. But you raise a significant point. If you have MPs serve on boards, some have raised a constitutional issue that is that not office of profit. But even beyond the matter of office of profit, how can they hold those institutions accountable to parliament? And then the role of the speaker. Maybe there is a shooting incident in Swami, or I shouldn't use Swami as example because your rules have been done. There is a shooting incident in Sunyani. Then the MP that morning walks to parliament. He wants to make a statement in a representative capacity on the floor of parliament. You see the speakers hesitating. How is he going to function well and be accepted within the constituency that he reflects their aspirations? So there are many issues, but bottom line, Parliament have failed to be a check on the executive. And the executive have taken advantage of the framing of the 1992 Constitution to work influence and to continue to do that. So we need to water down the powers of the executive. We need to water down the powers of the president. But go beyond constitutional change to both legislative and administrative changes. So, Tia.
Because in spite of the challenges created by the Constitution, we also come to the parliamentarians themselves. And I tried to find out if they have a code of conduct. I didn't come up with one. Well, Honorable Minority Leader says they do. And I wonder how many of them are applying it in how they take decisions and represent their constituents. Because notwithstanding the fetus or I think essentially the personal aspirations and party loyalty are the two main reasons why we are having the challenges that we have. I do appreciate the fact that but that notwithstanding, sometimes the situation also plays to the benefit of the opposition. And I'm looking at the hung parliament currently. I mean, some members of parliament would not be eager to censure a minister who has absented themselves either when they are required to appear before parliament or for other wrongdoings, let me put that in inverted quotes, because it suits their purposes. I mean, now the numbers are so tight that if somebody keeps absenting themselves, it favors the other side that may not want that decision to go through. So I think that at the base of the problem is the ethics and the integrity of the members of parliament themselves.
Thank you very much. Yes, what is the creation of the constitution that parliament is seen to be weak? From where I sit and what I've read from the constitution, parliament has enough powers under the constitution more than the executive, and I'll justify it. Now, Parliament can censure a minister, the first thing. Parliament can even remove the president. But can the president remove a member of Parliament? So what are we talking about? It's Parliament's own doing that they appear not to be strong. And I think it has to do with patronage. Because of Article 78 and how we need to make sure that we catch the eye of the executive. So now who calls them? It's Parliament itself.
Personal career aspirations which are closely aligned with that of the party. And so, I mean, the strongest minority that I have seen in my short life perhaps would be the one that we have currently, and it came out strongly during deliberations over the e-levy. And that also had a collateral purpose because it was an opportunity for them